Hello, welcome to the self learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 14 Political Violence and our causes of political violence. There are many causes that give birth to political violence. Men take recourse to violence as a last resort. It is rightly pointed out by Aristotle that men do not revolt because they catch cold. People decide to use violence method when they think that their survival as a community is at stake, and unless they fight against it, they will have to suffer no end. Normally, people exhaust legally available avenues to get their grievances redressed. But if the legal methods fail to deliver goods, people take to violence. Following are some causes of political violence, like general causes, the concept of national self determination, ideology, religious and ethnic conflicts, political conflicts between different groups of elites, economic condition, and the concept of relative deprivation. Now, the first one is general causes of political violence. We have seen in our earlier discussion that political violence has been a result of bad government. Kautilya, in his Arthashastra, said that wrong politics of the government and immodest behavior of the rulers give birth to revolts of the people. Wrong and oppressive policies of government create resentment in the minds of the people, and the people rise violently to change the wrong policies. Excessive taxation, hike in the prices of the essential commodities, deliberate disregard of law and morality in the exercise of power, unjust treatment meted out to certain sections of the society, deliberate neglect of certain regions of the state, political incompetence and misgovernment, and excessive and tactless use of force to put down peaceful agitation are the general causes of violence. Kautilya held that impoverishment, greed, and dissatisfaction are the causes of revolt. Now, the next one is the concept of national self determination. During the last 2 centuries, a large number of countries of the Third World came under the foreign control. They became colonies of Western countries. People in the Third World countries wanted to free themselves from the foreign domination. Hence, they waged violent struggles against foreign rule. In modern times, the American settlers were the first to take to the arms to free their country from the British rule. We have numerous examples of such struggles in Afro Asian countries such as Vietnam, Algeria, and Indonesia. Due to the pacifist ideas of Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian liberation movement remained largely non-violent, though there were certain armed revolutionaries like Savarkar, Bhaga Jatin, Bhagat Singh, and Subhash Chandra Bose in India also. After the Second World War, a large number of Third World countries became independent. These countries faced the problem of national building as the process of political integration was weak. But there was certain political consciousness in the minds of the people. Certain regions in these states who had a distinct cultural or religious identity demanded the right of self determination for their provinces. The supporters of the national self determination movement called it as a movement for national liberation, while the opponents of these movements called them successionist movements. In India, we are facing these types of movements in Jammu and Kashmir, Nagaland, Manipur, and Assam. Most of the third world countries are facing this problem. Even developed countries like Great Britain and Canada faced the problem of succession in Northern Ireland and Quebec, respectively. The Irish Republic Army and the LTTE in Sri Lanka are the most dreaded separatist group in the world. These movements are marked by excessive use of violence from both the sides. Thus, the nationalism caused the emergence of national liberation movements as well as the movements for national self determination. Now, the next topic is ideology. In modern times, ideology has played an important role in the spread of political violence. Ideology mobilizes people and gives them a certain cause to wage struggle against the state. Ideology explains the present conditions of society and asks the people to change it to bring about a better system of governance. Most of the movements in modern times are ideological in character. Fascism and socialism were two such ideologies. Fascist ideas became popular in Europe between the two world wars. Fascists glorified force and violence and advocated the unity of interests of individuals with that of the nation state. Fascism in Italy and Nazism in Germany used the extreme force of violence to capture political power. The ideology of revolutionary socialism moved a large number of people who were involved in violent revolutionary activities. The socialists stand for the abolition of the capitalist system, which is based on state violence. The socialists want to establish a classless and stateless society, which would end exploitation of men by men. We have examples of successful revolutions like the Russian Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, and the Cuban Revolution. The socialists argue that they take recourse to violence to counter state violence. There are a large number of countries which are witnessing violent socialist uprisings. India, Nepal, Indonesia, Burma are the countries that witnessed violent revolutionary activities by the socialists. In India, Naxalites are involved in revolutionary political activities. The next one is religious and ethnic conflicts. Most of the countries of the world are inhabited by the people who adhere to different religious faiths and belong to different ethnic communities. Therefore, there are religious and ethnic minorities in most of the countries. Modern state is trying to bring them under a single central political authority. Religious and ethnic minorities resist this attempt because they fear that due to this political integration, they may lose their separate identity. The moment force is applied to advance this policy, these communities take recourse to resistance and violence. Most of the West European countries witnessed religious conflicts during the 17th and 18th centuries. The conflict was between the Catholics and the Protestants. Now, modern European states claim that they are secular and they have achieved separation between the church and the state. But in many countries of the East Europe, Asia, and Africa, religious strife is common. Interreligious conflicts take place between two religious communities, between Christians and the Muslims, Jews and Muslims, or Hindus and Muslims. These There is intra-religious conflict within a particular religious community when a particular religious sect wants to purge the religion of corrupt practices. The fundamentalist groups who want to purify their religion take to an extreme form of violence. Those people who do not approve of this Puritan view of religion are considered as enemies of religion, and an internecine warfare begins. Algeria, Egypt, Afghanistan, and several Muslim countries are facing this problem. Culturally and ethically, modern societies are not homogeneous. Cultural and ethnic minorities want to preserve their separate identity. Hence, they want to secure and protect their rights. These minorities are formed on the basis of race, language, and culture. They take to violence if they feel threatened. Quebec province of Canada, Nagaland in India, Northern Ireland in Great Britain, the Czechian in Russia, Tibetan in China, and Kurd in Iraq and Iran are examples of this. Minorities are concerned about their identity and minorities question their political loyalty. In some cases, like Sri Lanka, the struggle of minorities assumed the form of separatist violence, which culminated in insurrections. Now, the next one is political disputes between different groups of the elite. Governing elite in each state consists of groups, factions, and these groups and factions are involved in political power. These groups and factions are violent methods to secure support of the people by organizing street demonstration, communal riots, and sabotage. A group well established in the government uses coercive powers of the state institutions to curb this violence. Political disputes among the elite may result in splits and divisions in the ruling group. The dissident group may incite violence against the ruling group or take help of a faction in the army to capture political power. Sometimes the disgruntled leaders may support the secessionist movements. Many a time the military takeover is the result of such disputes. The Afghan history after 1972, military takeover in Pakistan and Bangladesh are examples of this type of politics. These military takeovers are often very violent and cause a large scale bloodshed. The next one is economic conditions and the concept of relative deprivation. Economic conditions give birth to different types of political violence because they generate resentment in the minds of the people. It is the wrong policies of the government that favor certain sections of the society and push a large section of people below poverty line. Due to the wrong policies of the government, there is growing inflation, declining living standards of the people, price rise, unemployment, and non availability of essential commodities in the market. These factors force people to take to streets and participate in violent demonstrations against the government. Workers, farmers, students, and other sections of the society take part in demonstrations to protest against the policies of the government. But it must be remembered that the poor living conditions alone do not constitute a sufficient cause to give birth to violence. The workers and farmers must develop consciousness about it in their minds. When a section of people begins to believe that it is being deliberately deprived of the valued goods to which it is entitled, it takes recourse to agitation. The sources of deprivation lie in social processes, which causes a gap between what people are entitled to and what they receive. In modern times, due to education, learning of new skills, new consumption levels, and advertisement create a feeling of deprivation in the minds of the people. The feeling of relative deprivation thus gives birth to political violence. Low level of economic growth causes considerable resentment in the people. Even rapid economic development may lead to resentment if the fruits of the growth are not fairly distributed among the different strata of society. And then last one is support by neighboring countries. Political violence, especially sustained political violence in a state, always gets support from the neighboring countries, which are hostile. The foreign country gives support in the form of arms, money, training, and shelter. For example, political violence in Jammu and Kashmir is supported by Pakistan. America gave support to rebel in Cuba and Nicaragua, and Libya and Iraq are accused of supporting the Islamic terrorist network. Here we want to wind up today's lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.